What's up guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. Today we are reviewing The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves and starring Robert Pattinson as the Caped Crusader. Now there's been a lot of hype circulating the internet and the reviews about this film being a masterpiece. Was it everything I hoped it would be?
Not everything. Not yet.
No, to be blunt, I don't think it is a masterpiece. I've seen a lot of reviews that have given it 3 stars. I think that's too harsh. I do understand where they're coming from, but I think there's so much in this film that they get right that 3 stars is a little harsh. I'm probably leaning more towards 4 stars. I really don't think it's perfect, but I thoroughly enjoyed this version of the Batman that we got. Now, I may not believe this film is a masterpiece, but I think there are certain elements of the filmmaking craft in this film that were perfected, to a god tier level. And the lighting and the cinematography were the two. I think anyone involved in those departments of this film were the MVPs, because the look of this film and the mood it then creates using those two things is phenomenal. I think this film gets the atmosphere of Batman right better than any of the previous versions we've seen before, and I think it is that somber, brooding tone that carries us through the film and lends it that distinct voice. I do think it is comparable to what Matt Reeves managed to do with the Planet of the Apes films. Very dark, very mature, very grown-up films, pushing the boundaries of what, a 12A PG-13 film could be, without quite being pitch perfect. Now, the runtime of this film, pushing 3 hours, is always going to be divisive. I personally don't think it should have been 3 hours. You do feel the drag, particularly in the middle portion of this film. I don't think the narrative is quite engrossing enough to sustain the narrative for 3 hours. And it definitely stalls the pace at varying points in this film and exposes the lack of action that we really do get in The Batman as a film, which did surprise me actually. Part of what I was so hyped about for this film was the action sequences. And when they do come, there's a recklessness to them, there's an unpreparedness to them, they feel really spontaneous and brutal. They all just feel very brief. There's no particular fight in this film that stands out for me. They just come in short, sharp bursts. There's no extended kind of combat sequences or drawn out sequences. And the fight sequences that we do get all tend to be in the first hour of the film, apart from like the final fight sequence, which does again expose the slow pace in the middle. Now don't get me wrong, I don't believe that a film needs action to be interesting, but when there is action and when it is of a good quality, you notice when it's slightly underused. And I do think it was underused in The Batman. The amount of Batman as the detective that we got in this film was fantastic, but it definitely came at the expense of Batman the brawler and the fighter. And for me, the god tier of Batman action sequences after seeing this film is still the Batman vs Superman warehouse scene. As much as I loved the action here, I still don't think it has surpassed Ben Affleck's brawler in that film. So for me, slightly more action or a more extended action sequence probably would have helped the pacing of this film quite a lot. We do get quite a good car chase, which is visually stunning, but that's the only kind of prolonged sequence that we get in terms of set pieces. Casting, I think everyone does a really good job. It's the villains for me that stand out. Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot, unrecognisable, fantastic, can't wait to see him in his own miniseries. Paul Dano as the Riddler is great. My biggest fears kind of come true in films like this when you have like a mystery building up to the big reveal and confrontation between hero and villain, is that they'll be so good and scenery chewing that you'll come away and think, oh, I wish we had more, and that was my feeling with the Riddler. The narrative has been left open for him to come back, but Paul Dano is so good in the basically one scene that he gets with Batman that you just wish there was slightly more for him to do in the film. But he's a really eerie yet compelling villain that you really kind of latch onto, and his performance is phenomenal. Really underrated actor, Paul Dano. I was also really impressed by John Zoturo as Carmine Falcone. I thought he did a fantastic job. And considering he didn't feature too heavily in the trailers, I was really pleased with how much of his character we did get in the film. I think he got a nice little arc, particularly linking with Bruce Wayne's backstory. And for me, it was kind of the heroes of this film that I didn't feel as connected to, which was weird, because I think all the performances were fine. I think Pattinson does a great job with the version of Bruce Wayne and Batman that they're trying to portray. And because of how much Batman we get in this film, I think it's hard at times to be expressive and emotive when it's only your mouth and eyes showing. Don't get me wrong, I think that was a really good creative choice. I'm so glad we spent less time with Bruce Wayne and more time with the Batman. I think that's a really good, unique vision for the film that sets it apart from the others. But Pattinson is a fantastic actor. I absolutely love the variety of roles he's been doing. He carries a real weight in his eyes in this film, and I think that is really palpable. I didn't particularly vibe the chemistry between him and Catwoman. I do think there was something missing there, particularly as they tried to lean into the more romantic aspects of their dynamic. Zoe Kravitz was fantastic as Catwoman. Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon. I don't think he brings anything particularly new to the character. Just a really great actor, really kind of stoic role, sort of like Batman's anchor in this film. And Andy Serkis as Alfred. Really enjoyed. Was surprised at how little we got, I must say. I did like what we did get. Michael Giacchino's score helps to elevate that kind of ambience and that atmosphere that is really, really strong in this film. So for me, what stops this film being perfect is the narrative. I think the first hour is pretty much perfect. I really do. There's a lot of reveals, not kind of big plot twists, but the gradual unraveling of the mystery and the extensiveness of the corruption in Gotham City that plays out in a very slow burn kind of way. And that is deliberate, clearly. And I think some people will love it. I personally didn't. I do think it drags the film down slightly. And the third act for me works for Bruce Wayne's character development. I think his arc finishes in a fantastic place. But again, as a plot, I wasn't too keen on where it was going. So spoiler alert here. So when the Riddler's captured and Batman and Riddler face off for the first time, and then we have that interrogation scene, we're riffing off The Dark Knight quite a bit in this film. But you do have that epic standoff between the two. It's then revealed that the Riddler's plan's not done, blah, blah, blah. So Batman goes off to Gotham to deal with the carnage in the Riddler's wake, essentially, which kind of takes away the emotional stakes of the finale, because Batman's just fighting a bunch of brainwashed goons. So the main kind of villain plot by that point is over, and it's more about Bruce fighting his demons, fighting his reputation and his inner sense of selfhood. The film riffs on that well-worn trope of Batman being the true form of who he is and Bruce Wayne being the mask. You know, it leans heavily into that idea and explores that quite thoroughly. So the final half an hour or so is very much kind of Batman deciding who he wants to be and who he wants to be seen as. Which is really good because it grounds the finale as a very sincere kind of character study, which is good, and I really respected that. I just don't think narratively there's the same momentum. Very intrigued to see what they do with Barry Keoghan going forward. I was very convinced by that 1.5 minute scene that we did get with him and Paul Dano. We'll just have to see what direction they decide to take next. But for me, it's a fantastic world-building experience. Gotham comes alive in a way that I don't think any of the other films have ever really captured. I would love this Batman verse to just be Batman and his rogues gallery. I think there's so much rich material there. So thank you for watching, guys. Let me know what you guys thought. Please like and subscribe. That's always a help for me. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.